planning committee, Mr. Pearson, on.
Yes, I will. If y'all please join me and bow in a moment of silence. Amen.
Okay, need approved minutes.
I move to approve the minutes. I'll second that.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, building codes.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Building codes. Yeah, that's yours. Building codes department report for March was 283 permits issued, fees taken in, $79,556 for building permits, $7,650 for plumbing permits, $1,050 for gas permits, and the total being $88,256. On the back of that report, we show that we've issued 175 single-family dwellings first 3 months of this year, compared to last year at 153. So we're up 22 single-family dwellings. Our total permits issued 656 compared to 616 last year at the same time, up 40 building permits total. Our next report is our substandard property inspections. We performed 119 inspections for March with 9 new cases started. Total for the year, 324 inspections. The next report is our development tax collection. Building codes department took in $242,250. Planning department took in $139,500 for a total of $381,750 collected for March's fees. The totals to the right, $3,882,000 is our total for the year, budget year. That's better than the past 7 years already, with 3 more months of collections to go. So this year's been good. The jurisdiction that collected the fees was collected the most was Murfreesboro City. And that's my building code report, Mr. Chairman, and I do have a fee schedule to go over. I'll move that we approve the report.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Last month's meeting, the committee asked me to look at building permits in surrounding counties compared to our valuation chart that's current with the ICC. On the last page of your report, you'll see that the permit cost for Rutherford County and other jurisdictions, we have 15 other jurisdictions listed besides Rutherford County. The current fees for a 2,100 square foot living area with a 500 square foot garage and a 200 square foot expandable area that's going to be finished later on the house, the fees are as shown on the left side of the page. Our fee for Rutherford County right now for that size structure would be $796. We're on the 2006 International Valuation Chart. The valuation chart started out in 1987 at $34.50 a square foot. We changed fee schedules in 97 for $53 a square foot. In 2002, we went to $71.28 a square foot, and July of 2006, which this July would be 10 years ago, we're on our current fee of $88.38 a square foot for our fee schedules. So we're going to, if we consider going to the new fee chart, it would put us at $113.41 per square foot. Rutherford County would go from $796 for that 2,100 square foot home to $976 for the permit fee. That would probably increase our budget, just guesstimating on how many permits we issued last year for single family dwellings, and the size, square footage has got a lot to do with our collection fees. We could possibly take in $110,000 to $150,000 more dollars per year if that fee chart was changed. The fees, if it's increased, it would put us down right below Smyrna. So Rutherford County would fall into the category of $976, just like Sumner County, Williamson County, and Hamilton County. That's their current. They are on the current fee chart of 2015. It's a 2015 chart. Actually, the chart that I'm going by now is almost a year old. It is almost a year old right now.
Who's the author of that chart again? Who puts that chart together?
International Code Council puts the chart together for an average construction cost that is produced by the International Code Council and used all over the United States. It takes into consideration, the vinyl home compared to the large home. So it's an average roundabout figure for the square footage construction cost. And
Cost of construction.
cost of construction, right.
And then it's a percentage of that, so.
Turnkey cost of construction, right. Then our fee schedules go by the charge of the square footage, and we use a modifier for our area, our activity, and that modifier gives us that square footage cost to charge. Once we have that fee estimated, we can go to our value chart, which shows us what to charge for the building permit. So in other words, if you come in and you've got a $20,000 storage building or garage you're building, it shows us $110 for the permit. So it automatically, it's in our computer system to charge every time. The same square footage for living space, the same for expandable area, garage, porches.
The modifier is a regional modifier or based on
The
activity?
modifier
What's the
is
word you
based on activity and budget. So you take your income from your revenues, and then your expenditures, and then the total value of the structures that was permitted, and that comes comes up with a
Yeah, I
modifier.
understand, yeah, I mean, thank you.
Yeah.
But it's somewhat arbitrary. It could be more or less.
That's true. This
What-
is,
what about-
ICC just gives this as a guideline. It's not to say it's got to be this,
Okay.
but it just kind of gives you a guideline to go by
Sure. You
for
need
an
a platform
average
to work
construction,
from.
you know, yeah. And, you know, you've got houses that's being built for $100 a square foot compared to $300 a square foot. It's just according on if it's a custom home or not, starter home. Here again, I'll give you another, I'll give you another case here. 1,320 square foot home. This should be a starter home probably. 1,320 with a 400 square foot garage, 100 square foot porch. Currently, it'd be a $556 permit. The increase on the adopting the chart would be $670, so that would increase $114 for that permit. The 2,100 square foot home, it'd be about $180
Yeah. To
increase.
976.
Yes, yeah.
So
So it'd be different according to the value of the house.
could the multiplier be based on your budget? Your budget expense, average number of homes constructed per year, average value, and have a multiplier that might equate to equal your expenditure as opposed to coming in less than your expenditure? Because you don't operate in the black, is that correct? You have
That's
to
correct.
have some county general funds to come in.
That's correct.
I'm just curious if your fees could somehow be related to your expenses,
Mhm.
and could it be looked at on a yearly basis? Or
Well-
every five, some,
It-
has that ever been looked at before?
It could be, where we get off so much, I mean, we're talking about a 10-year span, you know. So that's why,
You've been
when
sitting
you
on
look
this
at
for
it,
10 years,
increasing
right?
a permit for $180 per permit, that's quite a bit, but you're looking at 10 years difference, you know,
right.
between our values. The modifier could be changed, yeah, to relate to total budget.
But David, you picked a modifier process that for some reason has predicted an increase or a fee that's exactly the same that Sumner County, Williamson, and Hamilton have picked.
Right.
They're on the chart at
At the
the
same amount of money.
2015 rate.
So they use this same basic, I guess you could say, pattern from which to develop their fee that, that's in the code that he's actually saying, referring to.
Right. Our modifier basically matches the other 3 counties in the surrounding Metro Davidson County. And that's the reason I chose these counties is because, you know, we're comparing counties around the Metro Davidson County area, Middle Tennessee area.
Well, what is the growth rate of each of these counties? I mean, you take Wilson and Robertson and Cheatham, are their growth rate comparable to ours?
Well,
Or Williamson County? We know Williamson County is supposed to be the,
Williamson County issued 2,389 single-family dwellings last year. We issued 2,142 single families last year. Robertson County issued 220.
220.
So that's a big difference,
Big
see,
difference.
in the total
Right.
revenues or the total,
Well, that's what I was wondering because, you know, their current fee is 1960 and their growth rate's not that much.
I don't know how they came up with their modifier.
Right.
But evidently, those 3 counties have got the same modifier as we do, so.
And
But I don't-
Wilson County's growth is probably almost as much as ours, and they're at 1960.
Wilson, okay.
They're, Mount Juliet is just booming.
Booming, right.
But they're showing, Market Graphics is where I get my information from more than anything. Edsel Charles does so many studies and seminars around this area. And it shows Rutherford County in 2015 increase in permits by 19% total.
Right.
And that's counting all the jurisdictions in Rutherford County.
Right.
And we're already at 11% increase this year. We've just gone through, well, I think that was actually January and February. We're up 11%, so.
Good. He's anticipating a continued climb for the next
I-
5 years, and the decrease that he anticipates coming up is going to be back to today's levels, and then another increase, so.
David, with
People are
these
gonna still come.
increases, excuse me, Phil.
No, sir.
With this increase, I can't remember the budget numbers, but this would almost put you to covering your expenses.
It
If
would,
we made this change.
right, we're asking for 2 trucks and an employee as a building inspector this year. And, this increase definitely would cover those items. And then see, next year, maybe we just need 1 truck or skip a year and get another truck. So it could vary every year. What you want to do is just come up with an average that helps you maintain that black, as you say, is in the black instead of in the red. And I looking at this right now, with our budget increase this year, it would almost, if not exceed, matching it. I estimated it at 600 single-family dwellings this year, which, like I say, we're already up 22, and we did 620 last year. So I'm underestimating just on precaution, for that.
Over the last 10 years, are we the first committee to ever question about raising this fee?
Well, the last 8 hadn't went too well, or so. Yeah, we're back to the point to where the economy was so bad, the last several years, and now we're back to needing.
Well, compared to the amount you said Robertson County done, looked like that would have been an ideal time to raise it when it was low, to
Yeah,
increase your monies.
yeah.
Do
Well,
you
they-
see
yeah.
any bad glitch with raising this fee? In your
Not
department?
compared to the other jurisdictions. I see it falling in line with Sumner, Williamson, and Hamilton, which are similar to our size as county. And then you got 10 more, 7, 8 more, counting Dixon City and Dixon County, that's higher collection for a building permit at same size square footage. So, I think for the Middle Tennessee area, we would be definitely almost still in the middle or towards the low side.
Do those higher ones have like a development tax?
Some do, some don't. The building permit is just for getting that permit for the home and square footage. We made sure that wasn't including any development tax or adequate facilities tax. But some do, some have, just like we do,
Doesn't Wilson County have a $3,000 development
I
tax?
think that's
So I
right.
thought to go along with this 1960.
Right, yeah.
Is this an item that you're requesting that requires a motion for us to pass to the full commission?
Yes.
Yeah.
How bad would it hurt us in growth if we moved up to, say, between city of Hendersonville and Dixon, city of Dixon? If we raised it that much, or even raised it to Bedford County level, would that hurt our growth?
I've been here 28 years and I'm not seeing anything hurt the growth except the economy, you know, when it, you know, interest rates. Interest, if you follow it, interest rate
Right.
definitely fluctuates.
Right.
Not, usually not fees, it's interest rates.
Right. And that would you said it would, at the 976 level, it would come close to covering your expenses.
Uh-huh.
At that level, it would probably just cover your expenses, I assume.
Right.
At this $976 level?
Now, I'm talking between
If you-
1166 and 1270. Somewhere in between the ballparks there.
Now, note that there are other fee increases that he's recommended in addition to just the building permit.
I'm sorry, I'm glad you broke it.
Yeah,
down there.
the other page.
If you look on the back of the page, we are increasing other fees by $10. And I apologize, I just hadn't got flipping the page yet. Our living, finished living area would go to 113.41, and as you can see, the finished bonus and all the others go up a little bit there. So that's on our fee chart. But what's not on our fee chart is our flat fees that we charge for special foundation, tents, change of occupancy, plumbing and gas permits. That is recommended to increase $10 per permit.
Oh, okay.
So that would also increase some fees, although our single families is our mainstay
Right.
on our collections, but and our revenue. But this would help us also, $10 per permit.
The $150,000 annual increase that you mentioned a moment ago, did that include an estimate on all of these or just the building permit?
Just the building permit, yeah. That was just the 600 single family dwellings.
Have you done a extension of this to kind of,
I have not. I've not figured what the $10 per permit could possibly be in revenues on this chart. It varies so much on gas permits and moving permits and demolition permits, you know.
I understand the building permit is also your bulk, that's your main,
Yeah.
that's your,
Yeah. If you'll look on the front page of the report where we have our fee collections, we collected almost $80,000 in building permit fees. And the rest is about what, 10,000?
yeah, just a
Nine-
little less.
9,700. So, yeah, our main is our single family dwellings. But that $10 increase on the other fees would be noticeable.
David, I'm not, I hear where you're coming from.
Right.
I think that's somewhat arbitrary to say, okay, here's some higher numbers, let's kind of crowd up into that. Well, when there's some economy of scale, Robertson County is a fraction of the growth we have, so they need more revenue I just want to be careful with increasing with the logical need to allow the department's budget to be self-funded. That is important to me, but I don't know that we need to get,
Well, I was looking though, at Wilson County is the highest and they're, with Mount Juliet growth compared to our growth, I mean,
they're real similar.
very similar.
Yeah.
And we know how much they are and then you go back to Williamson County, they're booming as well, but they're on the low end. What we're talking about going to.
I don't know how many 2,100 square foot houses there are.
Not many.
And it just so happened, I pulled some market reports this afternoon, like 2 hours ago, on what's selling in Rutherford County. The average house between 1,300 and 1,400 square feet is selling, average sale price was $122.75 a square foot. That's starter homes. That's vinyl siding homes, not granted in the kitchens and tiles and all of this stuff. It's basically a basic single-family dwelling, 1,400 square foot, starting out. That's what it's selling for. This as recent as 1/7/16.
And what is that, what is that information, how does that impact our decision making? What,
Well, it tells me that the houses are selling and the construction cost is real close to what we're saying they are here in this value chart.
His value is less than typical house is selling for per square foot.
Yeah.
That he's used. And it's a number that's not going to be such an increase that's going to get real pushback from our developers and builders. I think it would be something that reasonably acceptable, and it will fund his budget.
And this funding will definitely, I mean, it'll help us through next year's increase we've asked for, but also it just helps us in the future to plan for a paperless trail that we're trying to accomplish, and the builders can go online and check their building site if the building inspector's been there yet, and things like that in the future, you know. And it just gives us an opportunity to have that money to make our office better, user-friendly.
so the initial increase is a capital expense, and then once that capital expense is covered, then you hope to improve your service.
Definitely. If it works out that way.
Is there any kind of way people could hire like a private home inspector to do an inspection and turn the report into the county so that we didn't have to pay the expenses for that? Is that possible?
It is acceptable sometimes for us to take a third-party report. Not from a home inspector, we wouldn't, but from a structural engineer, we would. So it would have to be a specialized report, and sometimes we do accept those reports, but not on a constant basis. I don't think that could be accomplished with the department. And the state requires a county that has a building codes department to perform those inspections, or turn it back over to the state for their inspections. So, but we can accept third-party inspections, but I wouldn't know how to operate it regularly.
I just wondered in the future if it wouldn't be better for the people that are building homes to hire someone to inspect it for them and then bring the paperwork to your office, and maybe have one or two people that go out and spot check to make sure that the inspectors are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that way we wouldn't be in the business of having to do that.
Yeah, that's a possibility, but you get into, that's the reason for the permit cost is to pay our inspectors. So I don't know how that would, like I say, I don't know how that would work. If that would come back and haunt us to the point where y'all not even doing the inspections, you know, but you're charging me this, you know. So I don't know. I don't know of any jurisdictions doing that.
Well, I for one have been impressed with my time on the commission. I've been impressed with the frugality of our directors, and the commitment of our employees to hold the line and be frugal and operate on some tight budgets. Before I was on the commission, it's easy to say all we can do is cut waste. Well, I thank you and Mac and Greg and Doug. I mean, I've been very impressed with the lack of waste.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate it.
I think that also we have a stewardship responsibility to try to allow you to be self-funded. That makes sense to me as well.
Sure.
And be sensitive to the business world that helps pay our taxes. But I think with those thoughts in mind, I'll make a motion to accept Mr. Jones's recommendation for a fee increase based on that foundation of the ICC format, that table. That gives us some table to refer back to before we get too arbitrary.
It would be the ICC 2015 evaluation chart.
Does that support your request? Does that terminology
Yeah.
reflect your request? And Mr. Mayor, are you
Yes, I agree.
in agreement with that?
Second.
Got a motion, does anybody else got any more questions on?
Oh, I'm sorry. Effective July 1?
New budget year? Effective July 1. Please
And,
add that to my,
and also include the
and include the
additional chart for those
Flat-
other special,
Flat fee schedule.
flat fees that are,
I
being
accept that
increased
as
as well.
well, if Becky can. And as far as future discussion, this can be entertained on a yearly basis as opposed to a 10-year basis, correct?
Yes,
Matter
sir.
of fact, the fee chart was supposed to come out February 2016. It has been delayed, but it's going to come out. So this fee chart is increased every 6 months. So if we need to revisit it in a year and a half, 2 years, it's there. Yeah.
Okay, we got a motion, and a
Does this go to
second.
budget?
Yeah, I think we need to go ahead and take it to budget.
Is there a way to, we have a $5 archive fee for records management, and I was advised that we might be able to collect that on some of these documents as well.
I don't know if Mr. Lowell has a place for that archives fee or not.
Tell me about that. What is that?
I think we can assess the archives fee on anything that we're, producing records. So I don't think there's any reason we couldn't do this. I think it's,
That
it
money
might-
could go to help fund any kind of computer
We-
upgrades or technology upgrades. for
We
storing
have
records.
all of the, we have a lot of file cabinets that keep all of our records, and what our older records go to archives. So, yeah.
you have to define exactly what records you're going to assess the fee against, like the permits, building permit fees. Each one of those you could associate the records fee with that. So you have to be very specific about defining those.
Should we work on that between now and the budget, or between now and the commission? Because if we're gonna do this, I wanna go ahead and add that as
And
well.
we work on, I think we should include this as total, not for his budget, but part of what we're going to do for Mr. Lobel's budget. And there are some things there that we want to address with respect to those record fees that we've already collected, that are sitting there available to be used.
I mean, if we're gonna increase fees for him now, though, we would wanna go ahead and include that fee. It makes sense to me to do it all at once. It's starting July 1st.
But we don't have enough specific data to tell you what we're going to collect fees in his office for yet. But I think we can develop that before we get through the whole budget cycle.
There's no question. Need to call roll on this.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Serena?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Did we approve this report?
Did, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Piercy pointed out, did we approve his report?
We did.
We did.
Yes.
Finance
Commissioners. Our first report is the available lot inventory. I'll be telling you basically the same thing I've been telling you the last several months. The total available lots keeps going down. We're seeing more and more permits being issued, as David has already testified to, and we're seeing more new startups and subdivisions. We had some preliminaries even last month that came through the commission, the planning commission. So we're not seeing just a lot of tail off in that. The total available lots at some point is going to start fluctuating more than it is right now. It's pretty much been on a downward trend. But once some of these sections that are been considered by the planning commission, once they start moving through the process, construction drawings are reviewed, the work on the ground starts, eventually we're going to start seeing some of these recorded. So I would forecast again in the next year or so, we're probably going to see fluctuation in that, which is probably not a bad thing, because once you get to a certain point where your available lots goes down, you really need to start having more lots added to the inventory. So if there's any specific questions about that, I'll be more happy to answer them. If not, I'll just go ahead and jump into the rezoning report. The Planning Commission considered 4 applications. Only 3 were recommended for approval. The 4th one was for property on Williams Road. It was recommended denied, and the applicant has since pulled that application, totally withdrawn it. So I didn't include the staff report in here because it's not going to be coming before you. So the ones that I'll talk about tonight are just the 3 that were recommended for approval. The first is property located along Lebanon Pike. The applicant would like to rezone the property for the eventual use for mini warehouse type facility. They're only allowed by special exception in the commercial services zone, which is what the applicant is asking for. So if this is approved, he would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals in order to get approval for the mini warehouse development as well. And they're aware of that, and they know that the process would continue if this were to be approved. At the rezoning level, they'd have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and eventually, if that were approved, then they'd have to submit an engineer site plan for Planning Commission approval. So they're just really just on step 1 of the process at this point. There was a speaker at the meeting that did have some concerns about the application, and I included this in the staff report regarding possible issues with property values, traffic concerns, and spot zoning. The Planning Commission didn't deliberate on this very much, and they did recommend approval ultimately with 1 abstention, 9-4, and none against, and then the 1 abstention. A second piece of property located on the other end of 231 on Shelbyville Pike is the second application. This is for Thomas Holton for a piece of property again on Shelbyville Pike. The applicant would like to rezone the property to heavy industrial from its current residential low density zoning, and there's a little typo in the report there. I thought I fixed that, sorry about that. But basically what the applicant does now, he has a business doing this work along Cobb Road, and he's looking for basically a larger site to do it. He fabricates concrete pipes and other concrete items for construction projects. Because of the activity that goes on the property, this is considered more of a heavy industrial type use, therefore the heavy industrial type zoning. Access and parking, of course, is one of the biggest issues that we had with this. There's some ability, I think, for some possible discussions with TDOT to possibly move a median cut in that area to allow for easier construction, larger truck traffic, really. There's already an existing concrete batch plant right to the north of this property that is zoned heavy industrial. So I don't think it's really out of character with what they're asking for in that regard, but there may be a possibility of allowing, again, some work to do some possible traffic improvements in that area. That's something that we don't have to worry about in the rezoning phase, but at some point, if this is approved and the site plan comes in, that's something we revisit at that point. As far as any discussion at the Planning Commission, there was some discussion regarding property drainage and runoff and the potential for dust from the proposed business. The county engineer did respond that there would be a number of drainage basins that would be required. Again, if this is approved, we would consider that at the site plan stage of the development. Originally, when we first talked with the applicants, they were talking about just zoning a portion of the property, which staff actually was really more comfortable with. They decided to go ahead and just ask for the entire property to be rezoned, and after discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend for the entire property. And after hearing the reasoning, I'm personally, I don't have really any big issue with it. It was just at first, that was what the discussion we had. So that's the information on the second application.
I'm also,
Yes, go
I'm
ahead.
afraid I'll get them confused. Do you have any concerns about traffic on Christiana Fosterville? Is that, or was that even?
No, that's not really.
Is all the
no.
ingress and egress?
It's all gonna be on Shelbyville Pike, right, yeah, there's the railroad line is, there's a railroad line right between this property and, Christiana
that side.
Fosterville, so,
Okay.
right, it's not, you can't access
I see.
Christiana Fosterville from back there, so that's not gonna be an issue. The last application is for property located along Rucker Christiana Road. This is an application by George and Regina Lanning. The applicants are requesting to rezone their property for use as a retreat, or what we would call an event center, event venue. You'll recall last year we submitted some amendments to you for the zoning ordinance for these type of facilities. This is really one of the first ones that we've seen under the rezoning application. They have an existing 2,400 square foot structure on the property. It's basically a wood barn. And also the pattern book that's been submitted for this is on your iPads as well under the planning report. The barn was originally built for their daughters. I think a couple of their daughters both got married in this venue that they have, which you know, the amendments that we came up with really didn't address those kind of issues. It was really for other private events that they would, you know, rent the property for other people to come to the property, not for their own private events. In this situation, the reason they went for the rezoning as opposed to the special use route, the special exception route, is because they're not exactly sure how many events they want to have, but they think it'll be over 30. They'd like to have that ability. So the cutoff, as you recall, was 30. It had to do with acreage and it had to do with the number of events. If it was under 10 acres, it would have to go for rezoning. This property is not, it's over that. But the number of events that they want to have is greater than 30, so that's what kicked in this process. So that's why they're asking for this zoning. Now, the maximum capacity of their venue right now is about 2,400 square foot, would be about 100 people. They may be able to increase that in time if fire protection can be provided. They have been in contact with Larry Farley, our fire chief, and they've been in constant contact with this, so they know what the requirements are and what they can and can't do. Also, access would be from Rucker Christiana Road. You'll see under the concept plan, under the pattern book, there's adequate parking area here that they have. It's, quite frankly, it's a very nice piece of property. They had a neighborhood meeting out there on the property about a week or so before the rezoning hearing. I'd say about 10 to 15 people from the surrounding area showed up. Just really had questions, nothing really that I would consider, nobody really had any objections to it. But I think the Lannings, you know, they've been, in the community for quite some time. People know them and know what their business is. So they were comfortable with what it is that they're proposing. Also, the rear of their property, they'll continue to farm it. Everything's gonna be really toward the front of the property. So we did receive a few phone calls about this. There were some questions regarding their operation, emergency vehicle access, those kind of things, bathrooms at the Planning Commission, but ultimately the Planning Commission did recommend by unanimous vote for approval. So those are our 3 rezoning applications, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Can the event space, can they increase their square footage without permission from?
Well,
planning?
if they wanted to go in, and we had some of this discussion at the Planning Commission, you know, the question was asked if they wanted to add bathrooms in there, would that be a big issue? That in and of itself probably wouldn't be.
If they wanted to double their.
If they wanted to double their size, they'd have to come back.
Because it's a PUD?
Correct, because basically the PUD, this is basically what they're asking for, is what's in here. If they want to expand, then they would have to come back and go through the same process for the expansion.
Any other questions? I will make a motion.
Since I sit on the planning commission and I'm familiar with these 3, even though I came in late, I would be happy to make a motion to approve or accept the report.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How are y'all?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing really well, really well. We'll start with the landfill report. As you can see, that if you look at the bottom number of revenue, that's roughly 2,000 tons a month. So the landfill's starting to pick back up again after the winter season and going pretty strong. We did roughly a little over 22,000 tons last year. So it's increasing. We still have some gas migration issues and some leachate issues that we're still working on and trying to get those engineered drawings where we start getting some things in place and getting that taken care of. Any questions on landfill? We've been a convenience center report. Convenience center's been actually a little bit busy because of spring break. Don't know why, but we're always more busy during spring break and fall break when schools are out. And it's kind of a good time for us. What we'll do there with the 2 front loader routes is we'll run what we call the summer route. And the summer route for trash takes 3 days to run. That way you dump every school. And of course you got the county buildings that you have to run along with that. And then the recycle route is a 2-day route. You'll get all the schools picked up. So once we ran our those routes that way, we had 2 extra drivers on some days to keep caught up with the roll off with the convenience center fleets. Of course, weather is related to that. You know, we were closed for Easter Sunday. So last weekend was kind of a busy weekend. We've got rain scheduled for this weekend, so it'll probably slow down. So a lot of ours depends on what the weather is. But actually last month, if you look at the back page of the convenience center report, the very last one, the tonnage was actually down from last year. A lot of people saying the economy is back. It is still not back. And the reason it's not back is we can see it in your trash. People, when the economy is really well, buy stuff to throw away. They're still not buying stuff to throw away. They're buying what they need, but they're not buying everything that they want. But that's all I have, unless y'all have some questions.
Mac, I have not a question, but a statement.
Okay.
I had a call from a constituent today that happened to be a former county commissioner. And he reported that a close friend of his was out at one of the convenience centers this Saturday and counted in apparently a long period of time. I'm not sure why they chose that this would be a good thing to do on a Saturday, but counted 89 cars that had out-of-county tags.
Mm-hmm.
We've chatted back and forth as a group about that issue. Don't know that we have a good handle around a solution. Would increasing signage out front, basically saying that if you do not have a Rutherford County tag, you are not permitted, or you must show proof of residence and some good reason why your card has an county tag? Or could we post a sheriff's deputy occasionally on a weekend, on a Saturday, out there just to monitor? I mean, I'm just pitching out ideas because I know it's a problem, and I hate people poaching on our already overfilled landfill. And you know, we used to have a wheel tax officer, Bart Smith, before he passed away, and then his position just kind of faded out. I don't know if a position like that would pay for itself. Don't know. We've asked that question to other committees, but to public safety, and they said no. But I just don't like people poaching on us. And
the out of county tag is a very wide variety of things, and I actually went home early yesterday because I wasn't feeling well, but Danny Bernard from Chester County called me about the same thing. In Chester County, they're getting a lot of out-of-county stuff, and they don't have the 4 convenience centers. And I told him, I said, one of the issues that we face here is it's a college community. A lot of people, you know, coming up here going to school, they're not changing their tag,
right,
but they're technically a Rutherford County resident while they're here. And he says, you know, their area is the same type thing, and then they've got convenience centers that are close to the outer borders of the county, which we have just about all the way around the same type issues. Something that he mentioned that I hadn't thought about, but I think he's right when he said it. You know, most of the people in his area go to Jackson to buy a vehicle, You buy a new vehicle, they tag your vehicles, they wind up with, what is it, Madison County, I think, what city of Jackson is, whatever that county, they wind up with that tag. They have a wheel tax sticker in Chester County, which we have wheel tax but no longer have a sticker. So they, you know, they wind up with the incorrect information on their tag, but they are truly residents. You know, so a lot of that is a little bit hard to battle. I think I mentioned it once before in Eagleville one Sunday afternoon, the convenience center kept up with them, ran them out. And it was a large number of vehicles that was coming in from outside the county. To get it to where it doesn't happen is gonna take quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
You know, I've asked talk to the Sheriff Arnold about the possibility of having deputies assigned to work at convenience centers either a week at a time or a weekend at a time or things like that. He can do that. What would wind up happening is my department would have to pay the overtime for that personnel because they'd wind up bringing in a deputy that's already worked his week.
Right.
You know, so whatever his salary plus overtime would wind up paying for that. So there's a cost to all of it. There's also a cost to having those coming in.
Yeah.
I think the wave of the future, and it's not going to be anytime soon, Commissioner Jernigan, but it's going to be some type of pay-as-you-throw system, to where you've got to buy whatever it is that you have to prove that you paid for it, and then that's how it's going to be. But that's not anything in the next 2 years. Maybe when Miller Point closes and we've got the big trash issue that we're facing, that will probably wind up having to be part of our solution. The city of Murfreesboro and us have partnered on a RFP that went out last week to search for a consultant to help us through whatever it is our future is going to be. So part of what we're hoping that consultant will do is look at efficiencies in the city solid waste and the Rutherford County solid waste.
Okay.
We've gained a lot of efficiencies over the years, and we've probably picked out all the big glaring ones, but I'm sure there's a lot of small ones that we just, you know, we're too close to. We just don't see it.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't answer your question.
No,
but
I know. I don't know that there is an answer at this point, but it's just again another frustrating deal that people are not paying their fair share to.
But until we
use the
know
landfill.
precisely which of those so-called 89 people were not residents of Rutherford County, we don't know
Yeah.
the magnitude of the problem.
Well, and the thought, one of the solutions this guy suggested was, well, you know, if you put, if you had somebody and just wrote down all those tag numbers one day, sent a copy to you, and then off to the sheriff's office with a list of tags, you know, what does the sheriff's department do with those? I don't know, but you know, at least that would be something. Perhaps.
I think the something to that would be that, you know, if I'm a Rutherford County resident and I've lived here for a long time and I've born and raised in Moore County and I'm still running the Moore County tag, somebody needs to slap my hand and make me get a Rutherford County tag.
Yeah.
I think that would
Right.
help on that
Right.
situation.
And that's what I was getting ready to say, that, you know, if they have out-of-county tags and prove to be in county,
Yeah.
well, they're not paying their wheel tax.
That's exactly right, and that's the other problem.
You get them either way there.
Yeah, and if the sheriff had a list of those tags, then he could, if he chose, to enforce that with the wheel tag. So, is our wheel tax way different than the surrounding counties? I mean, is it
We're $50,
50?
and I don't know what the other counties are.
Bedford
But some are
County's
less
down
and
to-
some are more.
Some are more, some are less.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bedford
I mean,
County
it's
just
not
voted down theirs.
Okay.
Did you have a chance to calculate any savings or numbers for adding security versus the hauling costs? I think we'd asked for that last month.
Right, the adding the security, and we did some different numbers. We spent quite a bit of money last calendar year, 2015, on fixing some bigger, major repairs on trucks. So our cost per hour for calendar year 2015 for operating a truck was $132 an hour. Previously, it's been around 100. So some of those big expenditures kind of threw that a little bit out of whack. You know, so you'd have to average that. So, and we ran 17,322 truck hours. You know, I haven't done that math to see what that cost is, but that's the way to come up with a cost per hour. What I did was took the amount of money spent out of the convenience center budget. That's where the trucking operation is. Trucks don't run unless the centers are open. You know, so you've got that expense to go with it. So all those are in that same budget. So the amount of money spent was like $2.2 million. Divided it by the 17,322 is roughly $132 an hour. That's where our hourly cost comes in. Now, so you look at that hourly cost per truck. If you ran out of Weekly Lane, that's about an hour round trip. If you're coming out of Eagleville, that's almost a 2-hour round trip. Almaville, Rock Crusher, Bradyville, Craner Road, all those are roughly a 90-minute round trip, about an hour and a half. You know, so that's where your cost comes in. To add convenience center attendance, there's $490,000 in there to pay 40 people to work. You'd wind up having to add a person at each center to be 14 more pays. You know, the way we set it up, they're all part-time, so they wouldn't, the way it normally would be was one would work one week and one would work the next, so there's 20 hours a pay period each. And there at $10, we've got it in the budget. If it goes all the way through, it'd be $10.25 an hour plus the Social Securities and all that kind of stuff, which I forgot what that percentage is, somewhere around 15%. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's the match. It's 13.6% or whatever it is.
Right. So would it be cheaper in the long run to hire that person? Probably so. But just to hire some retired individual to stand out there and argue with those people, a lot of times you're not going to win those arguments. You would be surprised, I hope you'd be surprised at how little respect our employees get. You know, when someone comes into the center and they're not following the rules and the employee says, oh sir, you need to do it this way, it's like, I've been coming here all my life, I'll do it the way I want to.
But first of all, we don't know how much volume is being contributed because we don't know how many people are doing this.
That's correct.
Until we get a number on that, we don't know what the cost is for additional amount of waste that we may be having to haul. So we're going to have to do something if we choose to find out precisely what the impact of the so-called abuse of this system is. Secondly, our waste that we're hauling is not going up at our convenience centers. It's pretty much the same. It's level. Is it not? Is that correct, Mr. Noble?
It actually went down,
It went down.
2015 versus 14.
This is not a pervasive, huge amount of volume that's contributing to a lot of increase in our waste because he says it's even going down or flat at worst case. So let us do some critical thinking on this, but right now we don't have enough information to really determine if we've got a problem or not. Honestly, we don't know whether it's a 1% problem or 10% or what.
I would think it would mainly be the ones that are up near the county line. The ones in the middle of the county don't seem like they'd have as many people from out of county coming in.
You would think that, but the people that have lived here and moved off and they use whatever convenience center you want to pick commonly, they know where it is. So if they're looking for a place to go, they know where that one is. And I think I told you once, a month or so ago, that the drivers tracked a guy on a Sunday with a load of bulk items that we don't take on Sunday. He started out at Sand Hill, went to Weekly, went to Walter Hill, went to Leanna, and then went back north. You know, so that person knew, either GPS'd it or whatever, but knew the locations, and luckily our center attendants did the right thing and they turned them away. But if you look on the Davidson County Public Works website for places for them to dispose of their stuff, they have 4 convenience centers in Davidson County. And then they have the other things. The last thing listed is 300 Sand Hill Road is our convenience center in Laverne. Is listed on their website for people to come to. And we get a lot of calls, you know, and one of the first things on the phone call is when you, I want to get this to the dump. Okay, what are you trying to get rid of? Convenience centers are called dumps, the landfill is called a dump, everything's called a dump. So you got to determine what they're trying to look for. And you know, before I got here today, I had one of those calls. And I said, what are you trying to get rid of and where do you normally go? I normally go to the one in Laverne. I said, okay, that's on Sand Hill Road and it closes at 5 o'clock. That's what they were looking for, is what time it closes. But when you start with those conversations and ask them where they're coming from to try to help them find the right location, you'd be amazed how many times we get a phone call and it's out of Davidson County.
Has anybody asked them to take that off?
Yeah,
Let's get that.
why don't we have to just take that off?
It's dealing with government. Government's hard to get anything changed.
Mayor, could you
Let
call
me-
their mayor and ask them to fix that?
I'll ask her to have it taken off.
That should be an easy fix.
Solid, yeah, call the solid waste person. Yeah, we
They
are.
don't have a solid waste person up there. They're all public works. But the struggles with trash are really hard to deal with, and it's a touchy subject. You know, we mentioned it before, pay as you throw. Well, that's not a popular idea. You know, but, you know, we've got to come up with something and to get more teeth into the program. Commissioner Piercy asked about them last meeting, was we put up some new signage at the convenience centers and the recycle centers just the last month or so. And it basically says if you're not a resident, you don't need to be in here. If you've got a trailer over 10 feet, you're not supposed to be in here. And if it's coming from business or commercial, you're not supposed to use it here.
Well, I wouldn't be opposed to finding out what it would cost to have maybe a sheriff work, you know, maybe just 4 or 5 weekends in the summer, just to let people know that they're randomly checking. Maybe that might scare half of them off.
Just to get a count.
Yeah, make a list and send it to the department.
Part of the reason that signage went up is we were told by our sheriff's department is if we had those signs, then they could write a citation for trespassing.
There you go.
Because it's, you know, you fall in hitting one of these 3 things, so you're not supposed to be in here. That's the reason we put the signs up, is hopefully that we could get some help in law enforcement. If you look on our website, we've got a long list of rules, do's and don'ts. Most of them are really hard to enforce.
Well, I would, perhaps at the next meeting, could you just find out approximately what it would cost to put a sheriff out there for 6 hours on a Saturday?
But if they do, could possibly fine them a fine.
They could.
Would the fine outweigh the court costs it'll take to collect it if they don't volunteer pay it?
I don't know the answer to that.
They would have to file some sort of complaint. They'd have to take it into court for the fine to be executed.
Yeah.
This was yesterday. I was in the office for a short period of time, but somebody went up Landfill Road and dumped out a whole truckload of stuff. And normally what we'll do is call the sheriff's department. Well, it was way down the embankment. The deputy called. He said he couldn't get to it to see if he could find any addresses. So we sent the litter crew out there, and they found the addresses. And it was a Laverne address on Cedar Lane. I won't give you the actual number, but so we called the sheriff's department back, and I was texting the pictures and all that kind of stuff to the deputy. And Kathy was on the phone with the sheriff's department. And it's like, well, you know, we've already picked it up and everything else. I said, yes, we have it in a trailer and we can take it back to their home if you choose for us to do that. No, you don't need to do that. But something as drastic as that is what it's going to take to break some of these people from doing it.
Well, I move that we approve his report.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Mac, real quick.
Yes, sir.
What about the county and the dude with the tire grinding thing? Are they still wanna talk to us, or they've moved on? What's the story on that?
No, we had a phone meeting last week where Commissioner Piercy voiced his opposition to being at the landfill, which I hadn't even considered another location until he said that. And we're actually looking at a piece of property in Smyrna that the county owns. It's already in an industrial site. All the utility things are there. Thursday, be 2 weeks ago this week, the tires board met, most of them met, and they looked at the piece of property. They liked it. And then they wanted to have an actual sit-down meeting, so the closest place I could find for them to meet was, that was the day I was having surgery, so I couldn't go. They met at the City of Murfreesboro Solid Waste Facility. They've got a big meeting room there, and discussed it, and they actually like that piece of property better than they like the landfill property.
Right. But any proposal will come through this committee?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Until we have a rational proposal, it won't be back.
Right.
That's a good statement.
Yeah.
So don't,
We only accept rational
don't
proposals.
encourage it unless you want something.
And Steve, I'm glad you
We're ready for highway.
raised that.
Yeah.
Thanks for raising that on behalf of your.
Highway
I had a couple of folks call.
Well, I've
Yeah,
had,
me too.
had several concerns, and, you know, the people at Walter Hill, they've had enough.
Yeah,
I'm glad you spoke up.
Well, it's not on
They've
there.
had enough.
He look at this.
Good evening.
We need to go get a sandwich.
We have what we believe is a rational proposal.
Sir, can you get, down there at that empty chair that has it,
For the road, what do you need? It's the
yeah, they got it.
road thing?
They got a road thing.
Yes, sir. There's the works.
We're gonna start out with our drainage, our public works drainage easement approval. And then we'll move on to the budget, if that's okay with everyone. We were asked to, the road board was asked to take a drainage easement from Rushbrook subdivision. There is a deed description. This will complete really what this is an extension of an existing drainage ditch that never made it to the actual drainage basin. Would that be accurate?
Yes, sir.
So this is just cleaning up something that was left undone.
I'll make a motion to approve this drainage easement. That's written.
Second.
Any further questions? Not, all in favor?
Aye. If we could get Miss Mary to come up
There's a lot of people.
and join us.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our 2016-2017 budget. If you've had an opportunity to review this, and I assume you have, you will see that there's a large increase in the revenue and expenditures, and that is represented to the contract that we have negotiated and have tentatively accepted to rehabilitate the bridge on Weekly Lane. So that's what that $1.4 million represents. That is a increase to our expenditures, and our 98% of that will be increased to our revenue as well by our state aid program. We've opened and tentatively accepted the bid to rehabilitate the bridge, and we have signed the document that the engineer put together after the bid, and then that document will be signed by, or that package will be signed by TDOT and then returned to us, and we will award the contract and give the contractor a notice to proceed. So that's really not, that's a little more information you need about the budget, but I want to, clarify what that number represents. Past that, I think the increases to our budget will be represented by our insurance increases, and then our salary increases. We gave our employees a raise, a well-deserved raise, I might add, and then the benefits that go along with that increase in salary.
So 51.9 is not new personnel, it's raises.
That is correct.
And
We're still holding on to 60 employees.
And everybody got it?
Yes, sir. Now, if you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. If I can't, I'm sure Mary can, so.
Have any questions?
I got one, on the wheel tax, that 4240 account number. We take in or took in, what is it, 3,090,000?
Yes, sir.
Is that it, that's at what, $7, or what is that cost per vehicle?
The wheel tax is $50.
$50.
They don't get all of that. They get, that wheel tax is split across the school
Okay.
system gets some, they get some, and maybe somebody else, but I'm not
Alright.
sure, okay?
Okay, I'm thinking of the, what we have to, go every year and before we can get our wheel sticker.
Oh, you're talking about the emissions.
The emissions,
test.
right.
They get no money for the emissions testing,
Okay.
and we get next, and I think 25 cents of what you pay, I think, comes to the county.
Right. Now, at one time that was at $9 and it went down, or?
Actually, it was at 10 and it went down to 9, if I'm not
Went down to
mistaken.
9,
Yeah.
so is there any way we as a county can raise that back up?
That's-
Or would that be this
That's controlled by the state of Tennessee.
controlled by the state? Okay,
Wheel tax is what we can change.
yeah. The wheel tax is at $50. You wanna make that motion?
Not just yet.
That's all I have.
Anybody else got any more questions on the budget?
I will say that we are currently experiencing somewhat of a reduction in our asphalt cost. You know, as the fuel cost went down, you know, the barrel of oil, I guess, and then our annual asphalt contract is tied to an escalator, so if it raises or lowers by 5%, then our price is adjusted, our contract price is adjusted to reflect that. So we are currently, I don't know how long it'll last, but currently we have an opportunity with the same amount of money to buy a little more than we have in the past. So that'll allow us to complete some additional road miles. So that's a great thing. It's not an increase to our revenue, but then again, it is. You know, the fact that it's a decrease to our expenditures, and it has to be an increase to our revenue.
I think the mayor wants to make a comment.
I don't know if you know yet, but I mean, in the governor's budget, there is, you know, some money that they're pushing back, and a certain percentage that I heard is like $42 million or something is coming back to the counties. You may not even know yet how much you're going to get, or you may know, but have you put anything in this budget to identify how you might be spending some extra money that you may be getting this year?
That's an excellent question. That number, that 42 million is the last number I heard as well.
Yeah.
The original number that I heard was 100 million. And that 42 million, I believe, is realistic. I think that will probably happen. I think it's gone far enough that will probably happen. Now that money will be put into our operating budget in the state aid program. That's how they'll do it. Which is, you know, we'll take it wherever they want to put it. We'll take it. But I mean, that's the logical place to put it. That's really, you know, the easiest place to put it. And it will be distributed. My understanding is it will be distributed exactly like the gas tax is, which will mean that out of 95 counties, 50% will be divided equally among the 95 counties. The rest will be divided based on land area and population. It's exactly like they do the gas tax money. So 42 million, I haven't done the calculation on that. I did do the calculation when it was 100 million, and that would have been $1.9 million into our state aid. So it'd be less than half that, so we're probably talking $750,000,
So that's
which would
money
be 3 times as much
as your,
as we're currently
as your
getting.
current, so you'll have some additional money that you can,
Do some state aid work with.
and what I was asking, you haven't put in that money in your budget yet, but once you find that number, you guys will
Yes,
modify
sir.
your budget, I suppose, and determine how you're going to spend that.
That is correct. That is correct.
So that's a good thing.
Definitely.
Did the governor's announcement affect us any other way? What, Highway 99 improving, but that has no effect on.
It really doesn't affect
But our county's
the
gonna
highway
receive
department
some-
budget,
some
but,
benefit.
but it affects us as residents of this
Yeah.
county. You know, I mean, still a good thing, even though it's not, you know, in our highway department.
I think what they may have done, instead of the county is getting 100 million, they're getting less, and he's pushed it back over where they'll use it for some other purposes. Who knows? I mean, 100
Right.
million still won't go anywhere with $6 billion they need to spend. But it's probably gonna help the state more than it does the counties.
That $6 billion the mayor's speaking of, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know the numbers. I think that represents about 57 projects that are slated throughout our state. So, they're in, you know, that's,
Drop in the bucket. It helps.
Do you furnish your employees any type of clothing allowance or uniforms? Or
we do uniforms, yes, sir.
You-
We do uniforms.
Commissioner Nippert brought up the wheel tax, and so let me ask you, that, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, is that $3 million your portion of the wheel tax, or the entire wheel tax collected?
That's our portion.
That's your portion, okay. Would it be too much to ask for you to tell us what surrounding counties are paying as a wheel tax at the next meeting?
I'm sorry.
What the wheel tax is for surrounding counties?
I've got
Do you?
I've got a book that has a page on that, so we can.
I'd just like to know where we.
It may not have been updated by CTAS lately, but it's pretty current.
Does that state aid money come with like a county match that has to be made to spend it?
It does, and you might remember the conversation we've had about the match on, we have 2 state aid funds, state aid roads, state aid bridges. And we've had a conversation about the fact that state aid roads historically has been an 80-20 match, 20% ours, 80% theirs. And state aid bridges has been 75-25, right? And 2 years ago, roughly 2 years ago, Commissioner Diggs and some more decided that they needed to change that to try to get some of the money that had kind of stagnated in some different counties' accounts moving. And so they changed that match, roads and bridges. They started with roads, and then they started with bridges and then extended that to roads. But it's currently 98.2, and that was a 2-year deal. And they have recently extended that to be permanent. They made that permanent on the bridges. So that 98.2 is now permanent.
By roads, what's the,
But it's probably still going to expire
back to,
this July,
back to an 80-20?
back to 80-20. And I think that's, I think that's reasonable. A bridge project is, it takes a long period of time to make anything happen on any kind of bridge project, whether it be a rehabilitation or complete new bridge. It's a long process. There's a lot of engineering, a lot of things go into a bridge project. So.
After we leave, what is your next couple of bridges of concern that are deficient?
You know, I don't have that list in front of me, but that's the big one. There were 5 that were, you know, of the greatest concern out of 209, I think. So that's really pretty good. But the other ones were small by comparison. So unfortunately, this bridge, the magnitude of this bridge and the repairs associated with it, drains the account. But you know, it'll build back up, and now we have an opportunity to get that 98.2 match. You know, after the account has had time to renew some. So, but the traffic count and then the size of the structure, Weekly Lane was definitely, you know, the right thing to do, right one to pursue. Because when we started that, you know, we had no idea that they were going to extend that offer of 98.2, you know, so we wanted to get the worst one behind us while we had that on the table. So.
Any more questions? Need a motion?
To accept.
Have a motion now. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
We're adjourning.
What are they telling us here?
We raised it from what it was, 2,100